Hello again, everyone. So we are going to present the MLOps Coding Course to you. So it's a course that Matthieu and I created a few months ago to improve your AML skill for data scientists. So let's start with a presentation itself. So my name is Mederic Hurier. I'm working currently as a freelance for Decathlon. I've graduated from the University of Luxembourg, so that's why I'm always nostalgic to come back here and discuss with our old friend. So working at Decathlon, and currently I'm working on their MLOps platform, MLOps. We have several data scientists, and that's the motivation why I created the course. I'm going to explain that later. And I let Matthieu introduce himself.
Hello, so I'm Matthieu Jimenez. I'm a research associate here at the University of Luxembourg. So I graduated just 1 year before Mederic, but since then we discussed a lot, and we started in fact 2 years ago the MLOps Meetup here in Luxembourg with the first event at the university here. And a couple of months ago we started to discuss about what is missing in the MLOps community. And it started by a thought. When you try to do machine learning and you are just brand new into machine learning, people can just show you the mad landscape, and you will notice something is that whatever you can think of, someone has thought of something for you. Whether everything communicates is a different story. But when you start to enter machine learning, you will have to learn about frameworks, about solutions. If you go from the data science perspective, you will have to go about theories. You will need to understand your data. And that can be a bit overwhelming. And then when you start to discuss and you work for your first job as data scientist, you start to have people that say, yes, but what about putting your model into production? I will need your code. My what? Your code. Yes, but so you already have learned all about frameworks, you start to have your notebooks, everything starts to go quite well, and suddenly they ask you about productionizing your code, in fact. And while it might sound quite straightforward in some cases, it's not always the case. And so, as a starting point, you could ask the ML engineering team, and perhaps an ML engineer could help you to go from your notebook into a Python package and to something that could be deployed. But this has quite a problem there, is that it results in a bit of a bottleneck about how many ML engineers are available to discuss with you. And then it reduces a bit the autonomy of people that just want to get their model into production. So when you think about that, additionally, the ML engineering people are usually talking a different language. Most of them coming from, let's say, software engineering or have software engineering background and are expecting some stuff from you. But how can you understand what they mean? So we started, in fact, this discussion with Mederic a year ago when he had to create an MLOps template for Decathlon. And this MLOps template, well, he created something with a lot of nice open source libraries, which are super useful for having an MLOps package at the end. And it integrated software testing, design patterns straight out of the box. And the package, we will show it to you, is really nice. But when you think about it, so you spend months learning new frameworks, new machine learning approaches, and then you have someone coming to you and saying, yes, now we will put your model into production, please follow the template. And not sure. And then the template is quite well documented, but you start to go a bit about it, and so far so good. And then start to talk about installation, Python environment, YAML, execution, automation. I can go on quite a lot. And useful tool, like how you do git commit pre-hook, how you do PyInvoke, what is CI/CD, why it is useful. So you have a lot of new concepts that are added to this. And so one thing that we started to think is how we could explain all the notions behind and why we need them. And that's not a bad thing to not know about them. It's just that we need to convey the message about why it's important and why it can be useful. And that's where our idea stemmed from, is that we wanted to create a bridge to the knowledge gap that exists. And ideally, our courses should be platform agnostic. Like I showed it before to you, you have a lot of different vendor solutions, and usually because they aim to sell something, well, you will have a tutorial, you will have certification about it. So perhaps you will have already all the resources. But all the basic knowledge might be missing, or you might need them. And so it was also designed to be applicable right away. In this case, for Mederic's colleague at Decathlon. And that's where comes the MLOps Coding Course that we released on 22nd of May, so basically 2 weeks ago. And so far it includes 7 chapters covering various machine learning topics from the coding perspective. And the idea that we had is that the chapter would follow the natural path of someone learning all these new concepts. And which can be a bit difficult at the beginning is that we organize it around a Q&A system, meaning that why it is important, what kind of library exists for it, how to use it, and what are the additional resources. And it is coupled to the MLOps Python package that I just showed it to you before. And talking about the different parts of the courses, it starts by the overview, like what is the course about, the project and platform that we use. Then, like a natural path, we start by how you initialize to first start your project. So Python, pip, Python, poetry. Mederic will enter more of that in detail. Then, usually you go to prototyping, which so far seems quite usual. Then you go to productionizing, like you want to transform your project into a package. After, perhaps it's nice to have a validation phase with typing and lighting involved. Then you might want to refine even a bit more your project with design pattern. And finally, a project, usually you aim to share it and work with different people. So that would be the last part. And now I will let Mederic talk a bit about the classes and the courses. And the slide change.
The style of the slide there. Alright, so first chapter of the course covers the introduction, so it's just providing the general information. I will not go into too much detail here. The things you need to know about the course is that first, it's free and open source, so you are all free to go on the website, show it to your teammates, adapt it, even do some commercial things with it if you'd like. You are free to use the dataset that we provide out of the box, I'm going to present after, or choose your own. So if you think it's better to adapt one of your existing projects with the technique we explain, that's really up to you. Then it's not, we don't have any, how to say, the course is not on Udemy, on Coursera, but if you want, you can reach Matthieu and I to have some mentoring. So if for your company or for you, you'd like to not just look at the course, but also have people to help you, motivate you, and explain some concept, we are here to help. And we also build a RAG assistant, it's the hype now, so with the course content. Finally, we also share some resources on the course if you want to go further, and explain how you can also contribute if you think there is some content you'd like to bring from your own experience. So looking at the course, it's here. We will share the web address at the end of the section. You can see the chapter that Matthieu explained here, and then we have the 7th section. Right, so it's on GitHub. You can edit it if you want, create some issues, pull requests, classical stuff for software developer. Now, for the next section, initialization. So let me tell you about the story. I think the most request I got at Decathlon is, okay, it's not working on my system, and 90% of the time it's because their Python environment is not properly set up, because it's not the right version, it's a mix of Python in Conda, in V1, and so on, it's a mess. I say, please open your shell, your bash RC, I see a path which is super long. So usually the first thing I do is to ask them, okay, let's clean up your system, so at least we know that everything is properly set up. So that's why I created this section, is to be sure that people have the right environment when they start developing. So we start with installing the right version of Python, using Pyen to select the best, to manage the different versions separately. Like we have a case, for example, we are using Databricks. Currently, it wants to use Python 3.10. It will be much easier for you if you use the same version as in production. So this helps you manage this kind of ways for all your projects. And then GitHub, Git. So again, maybe some of you know about how to use it already, but we know, for example, that some data scientists, they are not comfortable generating the SSH key on Git or creating the repository and so on. So this is to say, okay, you start with a nice foundation for the rest of the course. Then there is the prototyping. So again, this chapter normally should be familiar. It's about developing your project with notebooks. So notebooks, I would say it's important because often you receive notebooks which are just a bunch of, I would say, messy stuff. It goes everywhere. In execution that is not in the right order. There is some hard-coded path, you know. So I've worked in research, and yeah, I saw some pretty hard-to-read notebooks. So here it's to provide best practices to help you organize it. So structure it into sections, helping into the, I would say, doing some analysis. I share some tips along the way. So all in all, it's to say that once you have a good notebook, it gives you the nice initial version to then put your notebook into production. So here I'm going to show the MLOps Python package. So it's a repository that we created where we implemented all the concepts of the course. But as Matthieu explained, it's the package came before the course, so we try to align the two. So here, inside it, we have a notebook, and here the goal is to predict the number of bikes that people want to rent. So let's say you have some, for example, it's Vélib in Paris. What's the name in Luxembourg? Vélo, I think. Yeah, it's to say how much Vélo do you need near Kirchberg, for example. So it's a dataset that's available on Kaggle, quite popular. So here is his notebook. I will not go into too much detail because it will take, that's why you created the course, it's because it will take too much time to cover everything. So just to show you what's inside it, we try to structure it into configuration so that it's, everything is well separated. Some option, the thing that I copy paste every time when I create a new notebook, like for example managing pandas. So here is the data set. You can see you have mostly information about the dead time, information about the weather, temperature, and people also which usually register on the period. Okay, and so here we share some technique, for example, to compute some statistics, to compute some scatter matrix, to have a quick overview, visualization of your data. This is classical stuff like modeling, so what Thibaut explained, you know, splitting by time, separating your column, creating pipeline in scikit-learn, for example, using caching. So we explain all of that here. And so in the end, we also do a good part of this notebook at the end is about the evaluation. So for example, ranking your solution, validation curve, finding the best parameters. So it's a kind of, like you initiate your Google Doc or I would say a Microsoft Word with some content already. This provides you a structure for your notebook. Okay, so that's for the first, for the second section. And then first section, so that's why it starts to become interesting. So at this point, you are in a company, and what I see is most of the time, here the struggle begins. You don't know how to run it into production, because you see, okay, what's orchestration, what is the job, do you need to use Kubernetes? So it depends really on the company of what you are doing. And the thing is, every platform is different, but there is one common thing, is that if you can structure your code well, it will make the job much easier for you. Here the goal is to say you will create a Python package, so it's like a jar on Java. What's the name as well? It's not cargo on Rust. Yeah, so it's a software package, and inside it you will be able to install it on Docker, run it on some environment like SageMaker or Databricks, and all of that should be common to all the stack. So this is really applicable to most of the stack I saw on the MLOps landscape. So here we cover how to create this package for Python. So again, to be clear here, package is something like NumPy, Panda, Jupyter. It's something you can pip and install, basically. We also explain how to divide it into modules. So you have a dataset module, a model module, and so on. The paradigm. It's to say if you prefer to want with object-oriented, function-oriented, so depend on your preference. Expose your model, your package. Have configurations. That's something which is important because often people, when they do MLOps, they tend to say my package will do one thing. But in a context, you can say I want to use different data, different setup. For me, I think the goal of ML engineer is to be able to say, given my code base, I'm able to run tons of experiments quickly. That's how you find the best model for your use case. So here it's to say with configuration, you don't have to code anything new. You can just pass configuration to change the behavior of your program. Documentation, that's important, and also some tips. If you want to share coding practice with your colleague, you can put that into a VS Code workspace so that you have the same linter, the same configuration. Demo time. So here I'm again on the MLOps Python package, and you will find, is it big enough for everybody? It's okay? All right. Here you will find, for example, in the SRC, how we splitted the project. So again, you have your notebook, and the next step is to create this package and create this structure. So first, usually what you do, you define configuration for your package. What you do at Decathlon and inside this package is to use poetry. So here you define the metadata, so saying the version of your package, the author, readme, its name, and so on. The entry point, so meaning that your system will expose an endpoint called bikes for this package, all the dependency that we explain in the course. And then some configuration, so that's for configuring the tool I'm going to show later, but here you can change, for example, how much test coverage do you want, where's the test allocated, so it's quite complete. And so with that, you can then divide your notebook into modules, so you can see here. We had lots of internal discussion at Decathlon to find the best division of modules, you know. Some people, they say I want to use the hexagonal architecture, domain-driven design, flat layout. So, all right. So there is a lot of choices. Here again, the goal of the course is to explain how to divide that properly. So here, for example, we have what we call the core module, where you find the most important aspect of your project, like for example the metric, the model. Like model here, you can see. So we're using Pydantic. It's a great module that I love to use for Python. We define an interface that we'll find in other language, like following sklearn methodologies. So you have a fit method to train your model, predict, for example. Get internal model, it's for using MLflow. We'll see that later. And then this is an implementation. So here you can define your parameters that you will be able to change with your system. You define your training pipeline. So here we are going to use sklearn pipeline. You can use XGBoost, PyTorch, anything you'd like. And then here we can use, for example, random forest for this task and combine everything into a pipeline. So you will ask me, Mederic, why do I need to bother creating this extra class with Pydantic? It's from my experience, the team, they start doing something with XGBoost, and then they want to say, hey, let's try to use catboost instead. Or let's use, for example, PyTorch or Prophet for this task. And if you need to change a lot of code, you know, to switch your approach, that's not efficient. Usually it's like a leverage. You want to have the minimum action to do on your side, to have the maximum effect on the other side. And here it's this goal. So this means that here you have a model called the baseline sklearn model. If tomorrow you want to switch to another approach on XGBoost, on light GBM or something like this, you are free to do so, and it will require minimum code change. All right. So I could go on all the different packages. Again, difficult for me to summarize everything. You can see we also have NIO folders where we put things related to the external world. I'm a huge fan of Haskell, so that's why I named it. So the goal here is to say, connecting to Amazon on S3, your local folder, HDFS, all of this, you don't want your model to be tied to that. So the goal is to separate. This is the internal of my package, or the model training and so on, and everything external, it's managed, and all I want in the end is to have my nice data frame. All right, the jobs. So here it's to describe the high-level logic of your program. So here, for example, the training job will take several configurations. So again, you may not be familiar with this syntax. It's for Pydantic. And Pydantic, I explained it in the course. It's a really nice way to to give you some power and avoid boilerplate code. We have several iterations at Decathlon with a functional approach, object approach, and using Pydantic, we think it's a good sweet spot because it gives you some nice design pattern that you can read in the course, but easy to use. And so here we have a single run method, for example, where we have everything. So we use MLflow, we initialize the service, and we can then say read the input. And you can see here, we don't care if the input comes from S3, local path, anything like that. It will manage to read it, and then you can proceed with your logic. All right. Okay, so that's it. And so if you want to run it, we have here. I recall this syntax. So yeah. So here, what I'm going to say is to run the bike entry point. So if you recall, in the Pi project, we created an entry point here for a script that can be used over system. And so here, we start it, and you have a trace. You will find, for example, which type of MLflow run we created, the shape of the data, which model you have used. And so if you want to switch any of this stuff, you can do that easily with configuration. Here you see, for example, it read the conf tuning configuration, but if I change it, like here, I'm going to, it's training, yeah, it's training, I will come back later, configuration, so this is the tuning conf. Here, so here you see the configuration will take, say it want to trigger a tuning job using the data and input and targets. And if I want to use the same package but just change the behavior, I can pass another configuration. So here it's pretty much the same. As you can see that here I provide an output to save the data. And if I want to switch the model, switch the metric, everything is possible from there. And so here the thing will run to create a model on MLflow and so on.
Are you using Hydra for this?
I try to use Hydra. I think a lot of people love to use Hydra, but it was really troublesome in our case at Decathlon because we are using S3 configuration, and it has a hard time to use S3. And we have also issue because Hydra, it wants to impose a layout on you, say the conf should be here and so on, and it was not aligned with the software principle we had at Decathlon.
Okay, well I'm using Hydra and it's working, but yeah, there are some weird things about it sometimes.
Yeah, for me I think it's nice, but I think sometimes they are not flexible enough. Yeah. All right, so let's continue. So here, takeaways, the package is important because you can use it on any platform. Notebooks, it works as well, but notebooks have a lot of issues, lack of tests, so it's not recommended. At Decathlon, for example, we ban the use of notebook in production, so Python package is the only way to go. Modularity, divide and conquer, that's quite common in programming. Separate the configuration, so you are sure that you can change the behavior without changing the code. And yeah, so to share with the other system. Next step. So here the goal is to say you have it's running in production. You have make it done. So congrats. Now you want to make it even more robust. And so you have a lot of tools in the Python ecosystem that you can use to ensure that your code is working properly. You have types. You have linters, testing, logging, so security for detecting the vulnerability, formatting as well to be sure that everybody has the same style in the code base, and also debugging. So this section gives you all the things you need here to avoid doing silly mistake. Okay, so here we install a lot of tools. I think the best is that I show you the result. So it's not something you code, I would say. You pass some configuration, like for example here, in the Pi project, so with Poetry, you can say, for example, with a tool like Ref, it's a linter, so it detects code smell. You can say, for example, I want to use this line length, I want you to fix it if you find an issue, I want you to use the Google convention to format the doc string, so it will automate all of this for you, and if I run it, no, it's I checks. Okay, so first it will check that the Poetry configuration is valid. Then it will run Ref to be sure that your code style is valid, so you don't have, I would say, not using the right type of syntax. MyPy, it's like if you love to use a program like OCaml, Java, or Rust, it provides some type insurance for your system. So you say, for example, this is a data frame, like for example here. You say, for example, this should take an input data frame and return an output data frame. It can validate that. So if I say, for example, here I want to return an int, it will give me an issue. So I can show you that maybe after. Okay, ref for the linter, bandit, and I'm going to show you something you may never have seen in an MLOps code base. Because I'm not sure how many of you have created tests for your ML code base. Raise your hand. Ah, some people. Here with the package, we provide the first MLOps package with 100% code coverage. I think at Decathlon I'm at 97% because we need to integrate with a system called Glue, and it's like adding 100 line of code in your testing framework. So I say at some point, no. So this is running in parallel, but here what it's doing is that it's testing the training, it's testing the data frame as in the correct format and so on. So it costs a lot of time to write tests. Here I can show you. You have, for example, some tests here. So it's running, test. Let's say what are going to show to see. Model, yeah, model. So here, for example, this is a test. Here we say as input you take a train test set. You provide some parameters. You set the parameters to the model. Then by default, you should not have any internal model. And then when you fit it, you assert, for example, that the model was fitted. It provided the data frame. The parameters are correct, and there is a model which has been trained. Other things, for example, let's say schema. This one is simple. So in the package, for example, we provide a schema. It's a kind of class for your data frame. Here, for example, we say the input data frame should contain this column, which is this type in pandas, and so on. We provide some check, like it should be in this range and so on. So our data scientists, they love it. Because when they read the data set, they know that it's working, it's formatted as they expect. They don't have to write some checking and so on. And so here in test schema, we take a data set, we read it, and then we check that the schema is correct. So meaning that the data is correct. If you, for example, I switch it here, I say, let's say output reader. Here it will tell me, for example, pipe test, test core schema. So here it will normally should tell me this first test doesn't work. Output reader. So output reader out here. Let's try that. Fail, and so here if I look here, it says pandas error. The prediction column is not in the data frame. You should expect date, time, and so on. So this is showcasing how you can use test. And as for the, for example, the typing, for example, here if I say this here should not return a schema but an int, normally I can go my py src, and it should tell me you have an issue, here it's not working. So all of that ensure that if you do a mistake, and it's quite easy in Python, there is no too much tooling, your system should scream. And you see here, it's, oh, what are you doing? You are creating a schema output, it's an int, you are a bad programmer, and so on. So, but at least it's better to have the error here than in production. And so it says, what are you doing? We're expecting this, you provide us that, it's not the right thing, we are mixing potatoes and carrots, so, okay. I think you got the point. So all of this is to make your system more robust, and as promised, I should be around here, 100% code coverage. Okay, I don't need a lot of stuff, Okay, so here, so it takes time. Usually when I go to the data scientist, they always tell me, Mederic, it's taking so much time to write your test, I don't want to do that, but I say, yeah, but in 6 months, you're going to change your package, you'll be really happy that you can just push it and you're confident that your code is not breaking. So okay, the investment, positive return. Also for the developers, usually it's good when you say the code base is tested, and so when somebody work on your code, you can say, there is some test, there is some linting, and if they are well maintained, normally it should be fine, no issues there. Moving on, how much time there? Yeah. Okay. Refining, so this one is not going into too much detail, it's all the advanced techniques. So before, I would say, prototyping is mostly for data scientists. I think data scientists can improve their skills if they learn a bit about production, but here it's usually something that we do in the MLOps team at Decathlon, meaning the team that work on the package. It's to provide most of the advanced technique to be sure that the team have all the tools, all the things to improve their productivity. For example, task automation is the thing I showed in the shell. So let me, here I can show here. Checks. I'm using something called PyInvoke. At Decathlon it's called make, but the make syntax is quite awful. So when I don't have to use it, I prefer to use PyInvoke. And so here I define some Python function, and it gives me, and here I just provide what it needs to run. I could provide some variable, I could provide some tasks. So it's like makefile or a rake or this kind of Java, it's Maven. Yeah, same thing. So here I can say, for example, invoke, you say checks, and you say, for example, quick one, like poetry, and it will check that the poetry file is correct. So we have a lot of tasks here.
Does it also work like a makefile that's checking if the targets need to be rebuilt or something like that?
Yes, exactly. So for example, when I launch the checks one, it ran all of these tasks. So yeah. But usually I find that it's simpler to use, and for people which are familiar with Python, it's quite nice, and you can split it and so on. So here we have the task. So we have several tasks: checking, cleaning, on the commit, documentation. So people we provide the documentation, they can just execute the task, and they don't have to know which command they need to type. For example, we also have the same task on the CI/CD, and so something I can show, for example, is here. If I run the MLflow task, so first it's going to run MLflow Doctor to be sure that everything is properly installed, and then it will boot an MLflow server. And so here we will find on the right, so we did a presentation on MLflow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here you can see the model I just trained. So if you go here, you have the name of the person, run ID, dataset that I've used, how it has been saved, all the parameters, the metrics, so what was the result on the system. Yeah, you can, if you have a complex metric, you can also compare them here. You also save the models, so usually models are saved as pickle file, so you can save it here. MLflow support, as we explained in the previous meetup, scikit-learn, XGBoost, lot of framework. And here we also have access to the model, so we just train this one, you can see. And here we can use it, for example, to promote this model to production, find what are its type signature, to be sure we are using it properly. So yeah, it's quite cool. Okay. Then it's here. Okay. Here the message is automation is important because often it's people that don't want to have to reconfigure their whole software every time. So that's why here we provide lots of automation tasks so that data scientists, they know that, okay, high level things in their mind, I want to make the documentation, generate the documentation. They don't have to know if it's things, if it's mkdoc and so on. So it really helps remove mental load when they are working. So I have I'm a big fan of design patterns, so I have a good chapter on that part. So again, it's a bit advanced, but I think it's a nice thing if you want to improve your code base. I also explained about Docker, I haven't shown that, but we use also Docker here, maybe quick demos. So once it's packaged, it's not too difficult, I would say. Normally, if I go here, containers, I think, yeah. So here I'm going to build the package, so it will create a will file. Then error, I think maybe it's not started yet. Oh, sorry. Well, it's not started, so it will take too much time to boot. Okay. Yeah, okay. I need to investigate that, but here you can run the Docker build, and it will create the system for you. Okay. Yeah, I think it's my setup. So yeah, I changed my path recently, so not a big deal. It's here because it switched. MLflow, all right. Finally, the last section is about sharing, because what we found as well is that usually MLOps it's also a human process, meaning that it's not about just having the most trendy tools and so on. It's ensuring people they can contribute, and also they know what they will do afterwards. So meaning Let's say I'm doing a big change on the code base. People need to know, be careful, a new version, major release like a 3.0, we are breaking this and that. So people, they know when to upgrade to the new version, what to expect and so on. So here we explain how to install the system, how to choose a license, templating. So we do a lot of code template at Decathlon to facilitate the work of data engineer, data scientist, and so on. And also, how to stop your repository. So I think that's it. Do you have any question for this section on the different chapters? The thing
yeah, I have a question about data management. How do you manage data and let's call it the timeline? How can you track that particular data goes? So something like a Git for data. Have you looked into DVC and these type of tools?
So I've looked at DVC. The main issue is that at Decathlon, I would say it's not the right scale. DVC is a nice tool if you are a small data science team. At Decathlon, we have a dedicated team called Data Observability, and they use a tool called Open Lineage and Marquez. And this tool, it captures everything that's happening in your execution. For example, which dataset have you used as input? Which run have you triggered? What is the output? When did it happen? Who? And so on. And you can send all of this metadata into this system so that we can track everything that happens. So it's integrated to Airflow, to Spark, soon to MLflow, which allows us to have a common system for doing this. But it's quite challenging because there is no tool doing that out of the box. Some framework like maybe Metaflow do that. Even here, MLflow, it's here. It provides a kind of lineage, but quite not as strong. Here, for example, we can trace the data set which has been used, what was the type, and so on, but it's quite limited, I would say.
So my issue with this type of tools is that it doesn't really work for computer vision, like when you have big images, 100 gigabytes, and then you want to have it close to the data, you don't want to mount some drive and copy files over network, things like that. So yeah, DVC kind of works, but it doesn't really scale up, I guess, if you have 100 plus people.
No, it's better to show, because every time we take the mad landscape, there is a lot of tool because there is a lot of trade-off. And it's true that DVC, it's really a Git for data. It's really simple to use, but really at some point, putting everything on Git, it doesn't scale. That's why you need to have an external server, but here often it's not out of the box. So you need to write your own glue around it. So that's why you're a dedicated team creating the plugin and setup for us. But I haven't found a tool which do ML lineage super well, I would say. Here, okay. Other questions? I let Matthieu conclude.
So, okay, you put it here. So, that was the presentation for the courses. Now, about the courses is that we were there to present you. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer. But as well as mentioned at the beginning, there was a MLOps coding chatbot assistant that was created. So I think saying it's RAG is a bit not really the case, because the magic is that all the courses is 90,000 tokens. So you can just put it in the context of Gemini. And actually you can ask any question about the class and the courses. And that's as well one of the explanations about why the format of Q&A is so interesting for the courses, is that you can use the chatbot as well to ask your question as a retrieval engine. And that was a bit as well the idea. So if you want to have a try, we'll just show it right after, and there are as well mentoring sessions that are possible. And finally, just consider that these courses is still a work in progress. Obviously, that's based on our discussion with Mederic, but there are as many tools as you saw on the Mad Landscape. You have as many discussions that are possible, so if you have any ideas, any correction or comments, feel free to get in touch. The course is open source on GitHub. You can build on it, just don't forget us. And on that, thank you for your attention. And now, Mederic, do you want to have a chatbot discussion?
Yeah. I was warming it up.
Yes, I was expecting it.
How much do you pay per question?
Actually, The interesting part is that after playing a bit with it for the last month, the invoice was 5 cents.
Okay.
Yeah.
But obviously, the more you use it,
If
it
you-
has a cost, obviously.
I think I did a computation here, the price comparison. I put it on LinkedIn for those who are interested. So I tried to compare the price per request. So as Matthieu mentioned, input token 100,000. It's using Gemini Flash, so it's 3 cents per query.
Right, but if you look at Turbo, as
At what? Sorry?
if it's GPT-4 Turbo, this one, it's 1.
Yeah, but the context is not that big.
Yeah,
Because-
okay.
Yeah, that's the main thing. And they're going to introduce context caching soon, so I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, okay, nice.
So here, assistant, let's say, what Panda's schema, which tool do you recommend for it? Let's see, demo time. Okay, so here it's recommending Pandera, Pydantic. So here it recommends the two tool. Show me an example with Pandera. So you could also provide your own code snippet and explain. So here generating the input. So okay. So here it's the same style as the code because there is several type of style for Panderas, and I think it's the same data set as well. So
This is running a LangChain, or what do you?
no, lots of heated discussion about LangChain. So we just you know, not hard coded, but
Yeah.
no framework. Okay. So here, what are the benefits of CI/CD? So that's why also I structured it into a Q&A, is because I thought if we want to use it with an LLM, it's already, you know, everything is packaged, so it can retrieve the thing more efficiently. Okay. So and here I can ask generate an example for publishing the system and so on. Right. I think we covered everything.
Yes. So now, if you have any question, feel free to ask. We still have the room for 10 minutes. So if you want to eat, feel free to help us as well, or drink.
Yes, you have a question?
Any question?
Yes, for what is an average duration you plan for the course?
You mean for a self-learner or for?
So for a guy that is okay about the Python, about the CI/CD, or more on the DevOps side,
Okay.
to go to the ML.
So the course is mostly focused on you are a data scientist who want to go to the DevOps, not so much. So the people will have to do the course in reverse, I think. But here, for example, I think what could help is focusing on the second chapter, which explains how to create the notebooks. Then here we will find how to use modeling pipeline. So for data scientists, I would say it's usually not the most interesting chapter, but for a DevOps, that could be interesting. And usually the DevOps, they will spend less time on the other end on all of this chapter about pre-commit, CI/CD. We should be quite familiar to them normally.
Okay.
Estimation time, I would say, it depends how fast you want to learn, but could be for just a section, could be 1 or 2 days, I would say. You know, if you want to practice, because reading something is quick,
Yes,
but you
no,
never learn anything.
good
So
to
if you want to
practice.
practice yourself, 1 or 2 days per chapter, I would say.
Okay.
I have a question. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Any kind of recommendation or best practices for containerization? Because to give you some context, we have a lot of Docker images that are like 30 gigs,
Big,
plus,
yeah.
and like I mean, that's already without the models. So if they load the models prime upload, it's another 5 to 10 gigs. So
Yeah, I had a discussion recently. I met with a Kubernetes engineer. I say, "Oh, you know, Kubernetes, it's so nice." I say, "Yeah, for you, because you have images which are like what, 300 megabytes. Us in data science, it's 10 gigabytes. When you have PyTorch, CUDA, So so here I think not in the course, it was I would say a bit more advanced, but the recommendation would be to try to cache the intermediate layer. So try to say, let's push the image with CUDA, so at least you don't have to reinstall CUDA and all of this. You just want to push the new layers. And for me, the main issue is CUDA. It's just taking too much time. Actually, at Decathlon, we are saying first, always use Docker. Now we say, if you want to use directly SageMaker or Databricks, they have their own Docker image. So we say, okay, be sure to be compatible with it, but at least you don't have to manage 10 GB Docker because you need to build it, push it, pull it. It's a complete mess. It takes too much time.
I have a question about so in Decathlon, are you using MLflow or maybe something more like weights and biases? Do you have what is your experience?
We're using Databricks.
Okay.
Yeah, Databricks, which is which are the funders, the sponsor for MLflow, and they have also new experience. Like it's integrated platform. Like recently they released the Unity catalog, and they provide things for monitoring, lineage. So not, I would say, as strong as you can find in specialized actor, but it's usually good enough for most of the situation.
Okay.
Other questions? No? Okay, thanks.
Thank
you
you
very much for your time.